Welcome to Under the Bleachers. Chris Ransom and William Yanish here. Tonight we are going to preview, Brandice Bell could be joining us in a few minutes, but tonight we're going to preview Tennessee versus Georgia. It is the game of the week. In the meantime, why don't we save that for last? I will give you my updated playoff for the top 12. I have not posted this on the website yet, but this is just a rough draft. Number 1, I have Oregon, and number 2, BYU. Number 3, Southern Methodist. They are the only undefeated ACC team left in conference play. Therefore, they get the number 3 seed until they lose. I do expect them to lose to Miami in the ACC title. Texas A&M, they're 6-1 in the SEC, so they get the number 4 spot for now. Indiana is number 5. Army is 6. Army and Indiana remain at 5 and 6. Ohio State remains at 7. Texas remains at 8. Penn State remains at 9. Tennessee remains at 10. Notre Dame remains at 11. And Boise State remains at 12. Miami Hurricanes and Georgia. Miami Hurricanes and Ole Miss are my first 2 out at the moment. But you can make an argument for Alabama, Ole Miss. Alabama's argument probably has more merit than Ole Miss, even though both teams beat Georgia. But yeah, I would probably put Miami and Alabama as the first 2 out right now. I wouldn't even have Georgia in the top 14, to be honest. They'd be like 15 or 16 for me, but the selection committee has them at 13. I know a lot of people are pissed off that Georgia's not in the top 12. Frankly, I think they've got a chance to reclaim that spot if they beat Tennessee, and we'll get into that later, but that's my top 12 heading into this week.
That definitely sounds about right, man. This is one thing where the SEC has been, beating up on each other, all season long. LSU over Ole Miss over Georgia, Alabama, just how it's been. The best conference has obviously been the Big Ten, though, because Oregon, number 1, and just some of them, Indiana, surprise team, and things like that. So that definitely sounds fair to me, man. And it's something where Oregon's is gonna go undefeated. But besides this, what they did yesterday, Saturday anyway. Alabama, Milroe had 4 rushing touchdowns. He had 185 yards. 2 other backs had Richard Young and Justice Haynes. They both scored on the ground as well. They just ran it down LSU's throat. And then they took it away from Nussmeier twice, and that didn't help at all. So just one of those things.
Yeah, edge rusher Jihad Campbell looked fantastic in that game. 2 sacks, really dominant against Will Campbell, who's still my number 1 player, and Campbell kept his hands on Campbell as long as possible, but Jihad Campbell just faster, more explosive off the edge, and that really was the difference. That and Deontay Lawson being able to stop the run, Alabama wins that game. But yeah, there's still 2 or 3 weeks left of college football, and then we get into the conference championship week, then we get the Heisman week, and then we got, after that, we got the 12-team playoff, which is going to begin on Friday, December 20th, which is the same day as the 25 MLS Super Draft. But is the Heisman Ginty's to lose now? I would say it is after Cam Ward's disappointing outing against Georgia Tech, because I viewed Ward as the front runner, but then he lost to Georgia Tech. I would say, taking that into account, Ginty would be my Heisman vote at this point.
Yes, sir. He definitely has my vote. Travis Hunter would be second. Third would be Cam Ward, and fourth would be Milroe with Dart right behind him. And that's just as simple as I can make it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ewers might be a finalist too, but I would put him at 6 right now in that group. But yeah.
Yeah, they're not supposed to take away from him for the injury, but that's going to happen anyway. And
yeah, the injuries are probably going to keep Ewers from being the finalist.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Otherwise, he'd be right there. And it's like, Carson Beck fell off the map. He started the season as a Heisman front runner. Vegas and everywhere had him that, and he has lost ground. There's reports suggesting he slipped to the 3rd, 4th round in mock drafts, and I can agree with that too. I said that there were a couple, Ward, Nussmeier, Milrow, that could jump Beck for number one, but Beck just fell off himself. He did it all on himself. So that's what I think about that, man.
Yeah, I had Beck at
Make it
83.
simple.
That was before the Florida and Ole Miss games.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
I would
And I mean,
imagine he's fallen further than that since then.
yeah. And, even though, Jackson Dart didn't play a very good game against Beck, they still beat him, a win's a win. So, I mean, that definitely probably puts him over Beck, too, as I would say in the draft, because I had Dart in the third round. I imagine with what I've seen from Beck, I would say probably third or fourth. I agree with those reports. So, besides that, Alabama plays Mercer this week. You think they can lose?
No.
Are we sure?
Mercer's a powerhouse in soccer, but they're not a powerhouse in football, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know nothing about soccer, man. I just do the quarterback thing. You're like the brain
Yeah.
over there, I call you the brain to like other people because it's huge, bro. I can't even imagine. Oh, man. I got like this much room for quarterbacks, and that's about it, man. I can't concentrate on anything else, so I envy you. What else we got here? Oh, I see Drew Pine has been playing some games for Mizzou, man. I liked him when he was at Arizona State. He looked like a guy that could come in and sling the pigskin around some, And a couple weeks had been going on and off with him and Brady Cook, You ever get a chance to look at Drew Pine?
Drew Pine, I know he was a highly recruited quarterback.
Yeah. He ended up at Arizona State, and like I said, he flashed once or twice. So that kind of interested me when I started looking at box scores.
Carson Beck is a 3rd to 5th round grade now, according to an article I read on The Athletic. So I was just checking that out.
Yep, sounds about
but
right.
I think what's going to end up happening is if the draft order stays right now, Jacksonville is number 1, the Giants have 2, the Tennessee Titans have 3. If you're the Jaguars and you want to screw your rival out of Carson, Cam Ward, and Shadur Sanders, the smartest thing you can do is trade the pick to a QB needy team, because the Giants will take whoever the number 1 pick passes on. Let's say the Raiders decide to move up, because I think they're the most likely candidate to move up for a quarterback. When the Jaguars move down to 5. In that scenario, the Raiders would take their pick between Shadur and Cam Ward, and the Giants would get the other guy at 2. And then the Titans would have to decide, do we want to take a flyer on a Carson Beck, Cam Ward, a Carson Beck, a Jalen Milrow, a Garrett Nussmeier, a Quinn Ewers, a Jackson Dart? Do we want to gamble on that at 3, or do we want to give Will Levis a 3rd year? That's a horrible ultimatum to give the Titans. And if you're Jacksonville, giving the Titans, your division rival, an ultimatum like that seems very enticing, William.
Yeah, and, they just keep flipping quarterbacks. So, I mean, maybe they should just do it again. I saw some things in Levis. He was actually the first formal evaluation I ever did a couple of years back. And, I saw something in him, but he was doing too much of that Mahomes crap, no mechanics. It's like, dude, if you clean up your mechanics, I mean, dude's got an arm, but it's like, then he had a chance to beat George a couple of years ago, and man, he threw one straight up in the air, got picked last minute. It's like, dude, all you had to do was go down and, kick a field goal. But yeah, so there's that. And you have to really decide on what kind of quarterback you want. Cam Ward, he's a quarterback first, but he's dynamic. He can run when he wants to. He just never really does. Milrow, obviously, I mean, he is a dog. But then you got Ewers and Nussmeier, and it's like, you got to decide what kind of quarterback you want and then do your research, man. Go into
because if
all the
Jacksonville
character.
stays at 1, the Titans are almost certainly to get one of the top 2 QBs in Ward or Sanders. But if you trade down, you can screw the Titans out of a quarterback, and I think that's the easiest way to guarantee Trevor Lawrence 2 wins after paying him all the money you paid him.
What about Jerry Jones trading up?
They just paid Dak Prescott $60 million a year.
I know they did, but Shadur isn't that good. So maybe they just want to, put him there to put some asses in the seats. I mean,
Maybe.
could be that.
Could be
Maybe
that.
try to develop him.
I'm thinking they're going to get Ginty though. Dallas
I,
should
w-
just get Ginty.
I was in a couple of Dallas Cowboys groups earlier, and man, they want McCarthy gone. So I will say that. I was like, damn,
I don't blame him.
yeah. But yeah, and then Indiana comes out and wins versus 20-15 over Michigan. So then they kind of threw Curtis Rourke's name into the Heisman odds. And he hasn't really done a whole lot, but a historic start like that, I mean, could be considered what he's doing for the team and how much. But then you have to judge how much coaching and how much quarterback it is. So I mean, there is that. I mean, 6'5", 223. I mean, that's a big dude, man. And he had some good play action. He sells it. I mean, decent improv, rhythmic footwork. Yeah, great zip on passes, and just that long body, he can really generate some torque coming out of his hips. And I mean, yeah. So I mean, he's a decent prospect. Like I
Would
said,
you say right now the SEC championship is probably going to be the winners of Tennessee versus Georgia and Texas versus Texas A&M? The winners of those two games are probably going to meet in the SEC championship. Would you say that?
yeah, because Tennessee is number one, Texas
Tennessee
A&M
and
is number
Georgia.
two.
Tennessee's got one loss in the SEC. Georgia's got two, and
Yeah,
then Texas A&M's got one loss in the SEC. Texas also has one loss. So as long as Texas and Texas A&M keep winning out, they're going to meet. But if Tennessee doesn't, we're going to get a two-loss SEC team in the SEC title, whether it's at Georgia, whether it's Alabama, whether it's whoever, Ole Miss, whoever it ends up being. There would be a two-loss team taking on the winner of Texas versus Texas A&M. And I don't know who'd hold the tiebreaker at the end of that, which would really complicate things.
yeah, and Texas A&M, their starting quarterback is hurt, and they have that other dude in there, the backup that runs all the time. I can't remember his name, but yeah, and so that kind of also makes me wonder about that, and I mean, so it'll definitely, I mean, the winners of those two games are definitely, it should be. I mean, I agree with that 100%, man.
Yeah. I'm going to break down the quarterback matchup for Tennessee, Georgia. Tennessee, they've got a quarterback who could be the top guy in 26. He's young. He still needs more experience. Nico Imaleva, he's had moments where he's flashed brilliance, but he's also been very erratic, very inconsistent at times. But he's starting to refine his groove, refine what made him so good early in the season. And then the other quarterback, Carson Beck, we talked about him already. He entered the year as a potential challenger for QB1, but now he's gone from QB1 to QB100. Can I say that? QB1 to QB100? Because it feels like Carson Beck, it could be QB100 if you just grade him off the last two games against Florida and Ole Miss. You could make the argument for Carson Beck as QB100. I kid, by the way. I kid. I'm not. I don't think he'll be that bad, but he's got a rebound against Tennessee. And Nico, there's questions about whether or not Nico's going to play due to an arm injury. He's going to play. Unless he gets ruled inactive, he's going to play.
That's another
this game of the year.
That's another running back that I was looking at was Sampson from Tennessee, man.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson and Trevor Etienne. Yeah. I think both defenses, Georgia, Tennessee, are going to be glued in on the running backs, and they're going to dare the QBs to beat them because both QBs have been inconsistent.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, Nico's young, and that's just how that is, and I mean growing pains, but he'll get it cleaned up. Like you said, next year he'll definitely look good. But yeah, back, I don't know. I definitely take the opposed in here.
If Beck loses another game, does that pretty much cement him in day 3, in your opinion? if Beck plays awful for a third game in a row, does that pretty much cement him in day 3? He's pretty much stuck there no matter what he does throughout the draft process.
I'd have to watch and just see how bad the game actually is, because I mean, on film I would really have to confirm it, but he's definitely getting down there, dude. And like I said, that
I'm not going to move Beck into day
he's already
3
right on
just
teeter
yet because
tottering.
there's still the Tennessee game. There's still time
Yeah.
for Georgia to turn their season around, but it's not looking good. The outlook is pretty grim.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I was talking with Joey earlier today on the phone, and I think your Senior Bowl, it's gonna be the Jalen Milrose, the Carson Becks, the Quinn Ewers, the Jackson Darts, Garrett Nussmeyers. That's what we're gonna see in Mobile. A bunch of guys who are, because the top 2 QBs on my board, Cam Ward, who I have at 8, and Shadur Sanders, who I have at 52, they're not going to be in Mobile. They're both projected to go in the top 5 right now. They're not going to be in Mobile. I think Shadur should go to Mobile, but he's not going to go to Mobile because he knows he's going to get picked very early in the draft.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh
going
yeah,
to
don't you
those
remember?
guys, all those guys are going to be jockeying for QB position at the Senior Bowl because none of them really dominated the point where they're surefire first-round QBs like they were in the preseason.
Yeah, and Dion came out and said that he was dealing with some teams over his son's future. So I mean, it wasn't even like he was talking about.
Shadur wants to play for the Raiders.
I know he does. I've seen that all over social media, dude, and I'm
And I
like,
think the Raiders are going to end up trading up for the number 1 pick because they're the only team that's desperate enough to give up 2 first-round picks to get the number 1 pick. I don't think they give up 3, but I think they would give up 2 to get that number 1 pick in this year's draft.
Yeah, and I imagine his dad's gonna let him play for the Raiders
because his
I mean,
dad
that's his
dad
thing,
likes
man.
the Raiders. Shadur likes the Raiders, and I don't know what it's going to take to get. But the Browns aren't going to offer 2 number 1s because they need a quarterback and a left tackle. So Browns are not going to offer 2 number 1s. The Giants, there's no point in offering multiple number 1s if you're picking at 2 and you're guaranteed one of the 2 QBs.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mentioned the 4 earlier: Milroe, Ward, yours, Nussmeier, and in my rankings, I've got Shador sitting right next to Carson Beck now, in about the 4th round. So, but that's just me, and I think he has a lot of things to work towards, and there's a lot of things that he can't seem to be hiding from like he should be. But yeah, I don't know, they're just coming out, and it's not good, man. And I don't want to say anything bad. I want the best for these kids, but man, it's like the kid has the talent, man. That arm is beautiful with the ball placement. It's like, dude, come on, man. Just learn how to read a defense. Anyway, but yeah. So that's just my thoughts. After Ole Miss's victory, Lane Kiffin did flip, that Alabama pledge, that wide receiver, Caleb Cunningham. Did you see that? Number 2 wide receiver, 25
no,
cycle.
I did not see that. So that's big if that's true.
Yeah, it is. He's the highest paid prospect by Ole Miss now for next year.
That's
6'3", 185 pounds, number 2 overall wide receiver, number 20 overall prospect. So yeah, Army, they finally were down 3-0 versus North Texas before coming back and winning.
Georgia's
14-3.
5-2 versus the SEC. Ole Miss is 4-2. So Ole Miss is gonna have to win another game before they can officially jump Georgia. They have a better overall record, but Georgia's got Tennessee, and then they've got 2 non-conference games to end the year. Yeah. Whereas Ole Miss has one. I think Ole Miss has 2 more conference games.
And they've lost to LSU.
Yeah, and Alabama's only reason Alabama's behind Ole Miss is because Alabama's only played 9 games. Ole Miss has played 10 games. That's the only reason they're ahead of Alabama. I'm pretty sure Alabama and LSU both hold head-to-head victories
I would like to see Jackson
overall.
Dart and Jalen Milroe go at it in the playoffs because I've been watching them the last 2 years, and Dart almost had him twice. Well, more the year before, less last year. But yeah, I was disappointed when that wasn't on the schedule this year. So maybe it'll happen in the playoffs. Maybe they can find some magic way in because of, you know, hype and such.
There's basically 6 SEC teams jockeying for 3 or 4 playoff spots. That's the reality. Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas are the only teams in the playoff at the moment, but Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama are still jockeying. And you got Missouri 7-2, 3-2 in conference play, and LSU. I think Missouri's going to lose to South Carolina this week. Because Missouri, South Carolina, and Tennessee, Georgia are the only 2 ranked teams. And I think
I was
LSU
looking at
might
that.
play their way back into contention, but they're going to have to win out and hope Alabama loses to Auburn, hope Georgia loses to Tennessee, hope, well, even if Tennessee, Georgia would need to beat Tennessee, and LSU, even if that happened, I don't think it'd be enough, even if LSU, because Georgia would be 6-2 in conference play on the year. So even if LSU won out, they would still lose the overall tiebreaker to
Yeah.
Georgia because they have fewer overall wins due to the USC
Yeah.
loss. So really wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So LSU, they're not eliminated, but the pretty much the only way they can get in is if Tennessee and Georgia or Texas A&M versus Texas tie, and
Yeah.
they would. Well, actually, a tie would eliminate them too. I don't think there's any way for them to get into the
Yeah.
SEC
And
title. I mean,
they
they're
were talking about, oh, yeah, well, a 3-loss SEC team, maybe shouldn't be out of it. I've seen that on social media earlier, and it's like, no, it's like I said earlier, the Big Ten's been better. They have Oregon, they have Indiana, they have freaking Ohio State, they've got Penn State, and I mean, yeah, sure, they beat themselves up, but that's on them. And the it should be equal billing all the way around, like we talked about a couple shows ago. And
yeah. I mean, Miami right now would be 13 for me, but right now Clemson owns the tiebreaker over Miami for the ACC title.
I'm still all over that Army thing too, man. I'm like, yeah, I got to keep that. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like, come
with
on,
you.
man. But yeah, like I said, that was the bad news that they, finally were trailing in a game, for the first time this season. That's crazy stat.
Yeah. Just letting Oren know I scheduled the show for 9:30. I didn't know what time would work with him, and if he decides he can't do the show tonight, I will message you. But
All right.
I'm just giving him a heads up right
Okay.
now on that, and then we'll see if Brandice joins. If not, I'm gonna call this show. But I appreciate you being here. This was
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, there's a lot of big games
Oh, and
next
then
week. Next week's the big enchilada. You get Navy, you got Army, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, Indiana next
yes,
week. So next week's going to be
yes,
huge. This week you have Georgia, Tennessee, but really nothing else in terms of excitement. You got Ole Miss, you got South Carolina, Missouri too, but
yeah.
those are the 2 big games.
Travis Hunter last week, I saw that he had 9 receptions and 99 yards and a touchdown. But then I looked in the box score and there wasn't any stats on defense. I mean, do you know if he didn't play
Yeah.
defense in that game or something?
I'm not
Because there
sure what
weren't
it
any
is.
values there. I mean, obviously that could happen, but because I mean, he was talking about wanting to play both in the NFL, and it's like, yeah, dude, that's not going to happen. It's like you got to pick. And then I listened to Brandice, because she's a defensive back, and she was saying that Travis Hunter is a wide receiver, that plays defensive back, and you can tell. And I started looking at him for that because I was just arguing the point that cornerback is probably a better position. But then, like I said, I heard her come out and say that, and I started watching him, and I was like, that's definitely 100% true, and he should definitely stay a wide receiver when it comes in the NFL. And I mean, I imagine he'll, get his way at some point and get to play a little bit on defense or something, just to appease him because, he's got all that hype behind him. He's such a star, But, I still believe the Heisman is Gene Cheese, so.
Yep. Well, we'll be back next week. We'll have an update on the 12-team playoff, and we'll have some other stuff. I want to thank William, and we'll
All right.